For the past 3 years, the Uyghur population in China has been the victim of genocide and torment, and their situation doesn't seem to be improving. Through the lack of awareness around the world and the Chinese government keeping the situation quiet, it is hard for the Uyghurs to obtain justice. In March of 2008, there was a terrorist attack that killed 17 people in the northwestern province of Xinjiang, China. The two men who committed the heinous crime happened to be Uyghur Muslims. Although prejudice has been upon Muslims for years, this event is what really triggered the persecution we see today. Muslims, already the victims of countless scrutiny over the years, are yet again being attacked and killed, particularly the Uyghur Muslims. Just who are the Uyghur Muslims? Uyghurs are Turkish-speaking Muslims that heavily reside in the northwest province of Xinjiang. Before 1949, the population in Xinjiang of Han Chinese was under 4%, but is now over 50% as the Chinese government forced its power into the area. And although their land makes up 15% of Chinese territory, Uyghurs make up just under 2% of China's population. The province has become a police state as the government constantly tries to make systematic efforts to assimilate the Muslims to Chinese culture. The internment camps can even be traced as far back as 2014, but didn't really pick up until 2017. Currently, over 3 million people are in these camps, as the government tries to cover it up, calling these concentration and forced labor camps vocational training camps, re-education sites, or boarding schools. While the Chinese government continues to cover themselves up, they are committing atrocities against the Muslim population. Uyghurs have been forced to renounce their religion, being forced to eat pork, drink alcohol, and are forbidden to pray. Uyghur women have been forced to be sterilized, raped, and separated from their children. They have endured psychological torment, arrest threats, and family connection threats. Gulcheta Hoja, a Uyghur journalist for Radio Free Asia, sat down for a podcast with the president's inbox and gave her first-person account of what it's like as a Uyghur in America with family in China.
To keep the world quiet about the building of hundreds of concentration camps, China even export its oppression to the Uyghur diaspora and internationally causes psychological trauma by threatening, arresting, or torturing our relatives to silence us. That is what China did to me. But when they arrest all of my family members to stop my reporting inside the US, I chose not to be silenced.
It is not only in the concentration camps that Muslims are facing discrimination. Children have been stripped from their parents and sent to state-run orphanages where they are drained of their Uyghur culture and language. One man's daughter even calling him saying, "You're a bad person. The Chinese police are good people," because he was Uyghur.
Just scared me just a little bit, because if things like that are happening to Muslims in China, then other places could, I guess, get inspired and start doing things like this. And it's a little scary, just because you're in this specific religion, nobody's accepting it, and then they're trying to torture you just because you're practicing, worship just in a different way.
We as Muslims in the United States, we are not getting like any physical effect by the situation in China. However, I feel like it's really affecting us emotionally and in terms of like mentally, I would say. Because knowing that a group of people are suffering because of their choice and because of their religion and like in the middle of the world, basically in 2020 and 2021, it's really surprising because these things happened in history, they've happened in the past. However, seeing that the world cannot really progress in terms of accepting people's choices, accepting people's religions and identities, it really like scares me, and it makes me kind of lose my hope for the future and for the global unity and global peace. Because we would want to see like everyone being able to practice their religion, talk in their native language, do the traditions of their culture and all that, but seeing that those things are being prevented from happening is really like hurting us, not just because we are Muslims and we share the same religion as the Uyghurs, but we also, like, as human beings, we are like hurt by the situation because it can happen to anyone anywhere. It just doesn't have to be Muslims in Uyghur and and Uyghurs. It can be Christians in there, it can be Jews in there. It happened to Jews in Germany in like the past 50 years. So it just has a meaning for all humanity, and I think we should take lessons from it, even if we are not Muslim, or even if we are not Uyghurs.
This issue is not just affecting the Muslims in China, but the Muslims around the world as well. I had the pleasure of talking to Sophia Azam, a junior at Panther Creek High School, who gave insight on what it's like witnessing this event as a Muslim in the United States.
So, I'm just upset about the fact that this is occurring again, especially since we have learned in school, pretty much since elementary school, about the Holocaust and how, the Nazis took in the Jewish, captured Jewish people, tortured them, killed them, raped them, did other horrible things, and the similar things are happening to the Muslim people, to the Uyghurs, in these concentration camps in China. And it's upsetting that, when, the Jewish were finally freed from the concentration camps during the Holocaust, people were upset, why didn't we do anything earlier, And now it's basically happening again where nobody's really doing anything about it. And hopefully, when they do get freed, people are going to be upset again, why didn't we do anything about it? So the main thing for me is just it's upsetting that it's happening again, and it's upsetting that nobody's really doing anything about it. And there are even people saying like, oh, why isn't anybody doing anything about it? And they talk about it and,
The issue isn't unknown to global or surrounding countries. If the average American citizen can hear about what's going on, you can bet global governments are well aware of the issue. In Thailand, the government is even sending back Uyghur refugees to China. The president of Turkey accused China of genociding Uyghurs, but their views have changed, and now the government has nothing to say. Cambodia rejected to accept 20 Uyghur refugees and coincidentally signed a $1.2 billion economic cooperation deal with China at the same time. Other countries are doing similarly. But why? Why are global leaders turning a blind eye to the issue? A lot of it has to deal with the overwhelming economic power China has, specifically in the Xinjiang region. Xinjiang has some of the largest natural gas fields and coal mines in China, as well as bordering 8 different countries, so it is important for Chinese expansion and communication. While most of the world is putting in no effort at all to stop the crisis, the U.S. has put sanctions on Chinese officials that interact with the U.S. in hopes of aiding in the problem, even if it's small. The UN has also called China out on what they're doing, but has not taken any actions to stop them, as the Chinese government keeps covering themselves up and continues the torment. The UN was founded in 1949, right after World War II, right after the Holocaust. Part of the founding of the organization was to prevent anything like that happening again, but yet here we are, aware and not taking significant action. The US knows about this issue as well. Why aren't we doing more than just imposing sanctions on a few people? That won't stop the genocide of thousands. The Chinese government isn't being sneaky about this either. They have outright publicized the idea that being Muslim is a mental illness. In October of 2017, an audio recording got released justifying the Chinese actions. Quote, "Members of the public who have been chosen for re-education have been infected by an ideological illness. They have been infected with religious extremism and violent terrorist ideology, and therefore they must seek treatment from a hospital as an inpatient." End quote. The Muslims are being sent to these camps with the acknowledgement that they did nothing illegal, they are just being infected with the disease. The government is denying what they're doing, saying, quote, "We must be clear that going into a re-education hospital for treatment is not a way of forcibly arresting people and locking them up for punishment. It is an act that is a part of a comprehensive rescue mission to save them." End quote. These release statements from the government are a way of gaslighting their citizens and the rest of the world. Who is finally going to stand up to them and stop their abuse of power?
This is almost certainly over northern China, over Xinjiang. Can you tell us what is happening here?
I cannot see, this video. This is not the first time you show me. I still remember last year you showed me what is happening in Xinjiang.
In Xinjiang,
but,
exactly.
But let me tell you this. Xinjiang, have you been to Xinjiang yourself?
No, I never have.
You know, Xinjiang is regarded as the most beautiful place in Xinjiang. There's a Chinese saying, you do not know how big China is.
Ambassador, that is not beautiful coverage, however, is it? can I ask you why people are kneeling, blindfolded and shaven and being led to trains in modern China? Why? What is going on there?
I do not know where you get this videotape. You know, sometimes you have a transfer of prisons and prisoners, you know, in any country.
As stated before, the U.S. put sanctions on Chinese people of power responsible for the camps, but the first step in solving this issue is making sure people know about it. We've seen this countless of times. The more awareness an issue has, the faster it gets resolved. I've conducted a poll on my Instagram story asking my peers to fill out a survey in which I asked them different questions about the issue. Over half of the 49 responses say they know the basic concept of what's happening in China, while 26.5% said they knew nothing about it, the other 20.4% saying they were well educated on the subject. The overwhelming majority of their information has been coming from social media, like Instagram stories, Snapchat, and Facebook, etc., from their peers. But this issue needs national coverage. It shouldn't just be teenage advocates that are raising the most awareness. We need big news channels like Fox News or CNN to start covering this. Sites with millions of monthly readers like Wall Street Journal or New York Times to get this issue in the minds of Americans and citizens of the world. The Chinese government is constantly muffling out any noise about the subject, limiting not only information and pictures, but awareness of it. So those of us who have heard about what's happening can't have access to everything going on. The truth is still hidden, and I can only imagine how much the coronavirus is helping their agenda. How many more people have to die before we finally start to pay attention?
Independent country. I do agree that, you know, because I know George Washington, one of the first things he said was don't get into foreign affairs. Like try to keep yourself away from like foreign countries because it'll harm you in the end. Which I mean, he is right in the most part, but this thing over here, this is not just an affair. This is like a problem. These are human lives that are being taken away. I mean, it impacts United States citizens. There are Muslim U.S. citizens, and it impacts them. So if you are really trying to better your country, there are citizens who are impacted by what another country is doing. If you really care about your citizens, you would take some initiative, you know, into what's going on.
When it comes to aiding the situation from overseas, we need to do more. We are a strong country with strong ties to China. If small countries cannot help because of the power China holds on them, it is our duty as a country who can to stop a genocide from occurring right in front of our faces. As a country, we need to urge our leaders to do more. Reach out to your state congressperson or senator. Try to write a statement in your town's newspaper or news site. Start supporting people who are trying to make a difference. Sign petitions like this one that is banning China from the 2022 Olympics. Although it doesn't stop the torment of Uyghurs, it tells China we know what you're doing and we're not okay with it. Donate and support to organizations like the World Uyghur Congress and the Uyghur Human Rights Project. This issue has been going on for too long. It has killed too many people. It needs to end. You can help. We can help.